Okay, so this would be a long shot. In this case, we get a large amount of the background in the photograph. The subjects, which are these two men here, are completely in the frame, and there's space over their heads and below their legs and around them. You can easily see the background, and if you look here, you can see way into the distance. These are two men working on an Oriole derrick. This is also, by the way, in case you're interested, this is another photographer. His name is Sebastian Salgado. Works primarily in black and white, he took this shot, which is just a long shot. I wouldn't say it's an extreme long shot because we can see a lot more detail with these guys. We can see his grimace a little bit on his face, but we're still wide enough that we get their whole bodies and the whole situation. It's not just about them, it's about the scene that they're in. And by the way, feel free to raise your hands or cut me off if you have any questions midway through these about what exactly makes up one of these shots, because I've got a bunch to show you, so I don't want you to have to wait until I get to the last of the 20 photographs. So this is by a photographer named Annie Leibovitz. She is very famous for having followed the Rolling Stones around for years. As well as The Who and a lot of American bands. And she worked for Rolling Stone magazine for a lot of the 60s and 70s. She was a house photographer, followed the Rolling Stones during their wildest years, apparently. Then she moved and worked for Vanity Fair magazine. She's taken a huge amount of covers for both of those magazines. If you've ever seen the Rolling Stone with John Lennon and Yoko Ono on it together, or recently the Vanity Fair with Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes and Suri Cruise. She took the pictures of that baby. The first pictures that they allowed to be published. She's a very interesting photographer. But anyway, this is more about the framing of the photograph. This is a medium shot. One thing I need to stop and pause on is that there are essentially two ways you can orient a rectangular photograph. Some photographs will be squares, but you can have a longer photograph, which is what we'll call landscape, or a tall photograph, which is called often portrait. It's going to be a little bit confusing because a wide photograph, when we shoot landscapes, meaning spaces outside, you can shoot them vertically or horizontally. So we can just say vertical or horizontal, but understand that horizontal is referred to as landscape and vertical is referred to as portrait. Similarly, when you take a portrait of a person, you don't have to hold it vertically. It's just a term that people use. Does anyone have a question about that? Is that confusing? Okay. No, we're good. All right. Anyway, this is a vertical shot, portrait. It's a medium shot. Note that the full body is still in frame, but it cuts off just below the foot, just above the head. This is not an absolute requirement, but it's about the range of a medium shot. You'll notice that there's really not a lot of background information. The focus is now entirely on the person, in this case, this bodybuilder. All the detail that we're attracted to in this photograph is this person's body and their pose, this very striking pose. And the shot is close enough that it's clear to us that the focus is on the subject and not on the background. But nonetheless, it's still wide enough that we get their whole body and see that full picture. And then we see that they are standing in some kind of space. Looks like a hotel room, carpeted floor, drapes in the background.
But it's always like that. The medium shot is photograph people, like persons. For example, the medium shot always will be like that. That there will stand person which head is on the top of the frame and the legs.
Are you asking if it's always like that?
Yeah.
Roughly. Like I said, these terms are not absolute. This would be about the average of a medium shot. If there was a little bit more space, you could still call it a medium shot, but when you start to get a lot of background in it, I would start to call it a long shot. But the whole point is not the exact framing. The point is that at the medium shot, it starts to become about the subject, or the subject becomes the person rather than the background. And you'll notice that I'm focusing on photographing people, because I'm assuming you're going to be photographing people a lot. When if you're taking a picture of an object, it's very hard to say, the laptop's head is in frame, or are the sunglasses feet at the bottom of the frame? It gets different. But that's why I use the term subject and not object. The subject of the photo once you get to a medium shot, is the person, and it's not the surrounding. If you've got cut off, here, maybe, and, the very top of her head touched the top of the frame, you could still call it a medium shot. But what's more important to think about is that the subject is now in the foreground and is now the focus of the picture.